Hello, this is Stonewater coming back at you today with another video update. And today we're going to talk about the tropics, which, as you can see, are very active with Joyce out in the Atlantic. And then you have Kirk out here as well. And then you have Isaac way up here in the northern Atlantic. And then you have a 40% area over here in the Caribbean. So we're going to talk all about this today. We're going to talk about are these any of these threatening, and will any of these bring round two into the Gulf of Mexico? We're going to talk all about that today. If you've been liking my weather content, please subscribe. But without further ado, guys, we can get right into it. So, looking at the tropics, you're probably looking at this and saying, "Oh my gosh, there's so many storms out here. This looks scary." Well, at first hand, this does look scary, but I can go and tell you right now, Kirk, all these storms, none of these are threats. All these red areas out here in the Atlantic, none of these are threats. The only one that could be threatening is this orange area, and even then, I don't think this is going to be a big system. So if you've seen something out there that's saying that we're going to get hit by a big storm, more than likely it won't happen. It just won't happen. So I can pretty much say with full confidence that Isaac to all the way down to Joyce and Kirk, these will all stay out here for the fish. So the only threat that these red areas have is to the fish out here in the Atlantic. Now, this orange area, there's a lot of just limiting factors. I really don't think this has a really high chance of developing. We may get a tropical depression, but guys, this will not be a big system based off what I'm seeing right now. Not saying that we can't get a storm, but it's highly unlikely that we get something of really big substance, that's something that's damaging or anything like that. I don't think that's going to happen. And something that even reconfirms that idea is the fact that the National Hurricane Center has actually lowered the probability for that to develop to 40%. So you click on this area, and yeah, it's only a 40% chance of development. Yesterday it was at a 50. They lowered that 10%. So that's good news for those areas along the Gulf Coast and the South, just the Southeast in general, who have just been hit hard with by Helene with heavy rainfall and damage. So very very good news for those still in recovery. So we're going to get right into it. I do want to mention briefly that we probably will have a small tornado threat here in the North Carolina region today. I will show you a quick model run towards the end of this video. We could have a tornado threat today, particularly in southeastern North Carolina. So SPC just put out a 2% tornado risk as well. So if you're in southeastern North Carolina today, which I'll have a forecast for you guys towards the end of the video. So, but there is a tornado threat for those areas. But looking at our area of interest down here in the orange, we talked about this yesterday. How we could have a system develop, but chances are we probably won't. And here's why. Now, again, I'm going to show you the GEFS ensembles. I love when it comes to these type of systems and this far out in time, the only thing I'm going to show you guys is ensemble runs, because there's so much misinformation out there with people showing you model runs that show big hurricanes and stuff going towards the U.S. Guys, the best tool to use when you're this far out in time is ensemble members, because it gives us an idea of how many members actually show a system compared to just one model run that only shows one system. So going through time, and this is just the latest 12Z. Again, I'm gonna back this up, and I want you to watch, and I'll circle the area for you. This area right up in here. This is our area of interest right here. So I just circled there. I just circled that for you, and hold on, let me get out of this. And generally speaking, I'll push this back. I want you to notice something. Notice how there's been a weakening trend, and that's continued fairly. Pretty much every model run has weakened this possibility of a development. You're going forward, and just look at that. I mean, every run so far has just pretty much weakened this possibility or this potential area of development. So, guys, there's plenty of limiting factors this time compared to Helene, and part of that is because you have three areas of basically spin, and what you want for development is you will want one of those areas to really form or create just one low pressure. But because you have three areas of spin, and I'll show you this just so that you understand what I'm talking about. But just because you have three areas of spin, all three of these areas are just very unorganized, and none of them actually develop a low level center. Therefore, you don't get a system. Just so you guys understand, I will show you an example of that. Now here's EPS ensemble members. And again, they're not very excited with the system at all. We're getting into the weekend. They're still not excited. You have a couple members that develop something, but overall, guys, this doesn't look like a big threat. So if you're in the Gulf Coast, guys, I mean, I don't want to give you the all clear, but signal is that this won't be a big system. And my hunch about this system overall is that it won't be a big system. I really don't see a big system forming out of this. I don't think this is going to be a significant system at all. If something does develop, it'll probably be a tropical depression, which, you don't want any rainfall in any of these areas. So, if I had to make a early forecast, I would say if you're in Florida West Coast, you could maybe get some heavier rainfall from maybe a tropical depression that might form. But generally speaking, guys, as far as a hurricane, tropical storm, anything like that, I just don't see that happening. There's a lot of limiting factors, guys. So but we'll keep watch on that. Now here's another group of ensemble members that we like to look at, and looking at these, we're going through time, and again, not very excited at all. Now there has been a little bit of a sneaky threat that as this low pressure pushes into the Gulf of Mexico, you may have an area spin up over here in the Western Gulf, and because you have such a strong front moving in, it would actually help to push it northeast. So, there's a couple caveats that we could have some development where we have our, those three areas of spin moving to the Western Gulf, and then they all combine to form a low pressure here in the Western Gulf, and then we make a system. But generally speaking, that's just not a high likelihood, and it's unlikely to happen. Now, I talked about, the three areas of spin. And I want to show you this so that you understand what I was talking about. Now here's our vort. So here's basically what we have. So we're moving in time, and you basically have three areas of spin right here. And we're gonna move it up in time. Let's say right here. So look at these areas of spin. So I can count probably 2-3 different areas. So you got an area of spin down here. You got area of spin up in here. So you basically have two different areas of spin. So what's happening is you have two areas of spin basically fighting for who's going to form a system. So I'm going to erase this off your screen, and we're going to move with the arrow. Basically what you have is you have this system that I just circled down here pushing north that goes right over Cuba. And because of that, it doesn't actually form a system. It also doesn't form a system because we have wind shear from our trough. Which, if you want to think something, think the wind shear, because wind shear should help keep this system from really forming and creating a big system. We have a ton of wind shear, and you can see how our trough is oriented by our wind shear. And what I mean by that is you can literally see how our trough is imparting wind shear on our system. If you click right there, notice our streamlines. Our streamlines are moving like this. This indicates that our trough is moving through this weekend. But what it's also doing is it's imparting this shear out of the southwest into the Gulf, into the northern Gulf, so that even if you do get a system to develop, there's going to be so much wind shear to the north of this system that it's just going to have a very hard time developing. That's why on the OOZ round last night, even though you had a system developed, like the GFS show right there, hold on, even though you had a system developed, look how quickly it just falls apart. And that's because you have your northerly shear up in here. That's killing this system. So regardless, guys, even if we do get a system, because our trough is so strong and because it's imparting southwesterly shear into the northern Gulf, what's happening is you having tons of shear just come in and pretty much wreck our storm. So generally speaking, guys, things look very unfavorable for development. And here's just another look at our trough that I'll move through later on this week. You can see it to the north. Here's our trough. And that's our trough to the north. So that's what's going to help impart that shear down here in the northern Gulf, that southwesterly shear, which if you didn't know, tropical storms, hurricanes do not like wind shear because wind shear helps tear apart the storm, helps tear apart that core. So generally speaking, guys, You know, if you've seen anything crazy out there, don't believe it. There's a lot of limiting factors compared to Helene. This will not be another Helene. We probably won't be getting round two of any development, which is excellent news for those in the southeast. And also another thing that I've been looking at as far as this system goes, there's going to be a ton of dryer to the north as well. And there's going to be a ton of dryer to the north because what's happening is you have that trough impinging in us. So even if you get a system to develop, dryer and wind shear should help keep things in check. Now, looking in the long range, it shows a hurricane moving towards Florida. Again, highly unlikely. You have a huge trough moving through the eastern U.S., which is basically going to make this dry air come over the Gulf as well as wind shear. So, generally speaking, guys, with so much trough into our north, this should help keep uh, storms in check in the Gulf, at least in the short term. So that's basically all I have as far as the tropics. This doesn't like a big threat. I would not be surprised if they drop this down to 30% over the next day or so because I don't think this is a huge threat for development. So, I'm giving you guys some honest meteorology, no clickbait, no hype, this, none of that. I know there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that are telling you that there's going to be a big system along the Gulf. It's not going to happen. That's what's different about me, and that's what makes me unique is that I'm not going to give you any of that. I'm just going to give you the honest meteorology. So, if you're along the Gulf Coast, Eastern Gulf, Florida, Southeast, do not worry about this system down here because as of now, I wouldn't be surprised if this drops down to 30% chance. Now, again, could we have a tropical depression develop? Absolutely, but it's highly unlikely that we have a system anything even close to Helene. So there's that. Now, I want to talk to you about this tornado threat because I do think there is a tornado threat today. And as I'm looking outside my window, there is a lot of sun out there, so the atmosphere is definitely heating up. We do have a tornado threat today, particularly from if I want to draw because I want to draw just so that you guys know and are aware of this. There is a sneaky tornado threat located right about here. If I want to draw right about this area right up in here, there's a sneaky tornado threat. There's a 2% tornado risk, which you're probably saying that's not a lot, but I mean, if you got on an airplane or you got on the flight and you were told that there's a 2% chance that your plane might crash, you would certainly be a little bit more cautious about getting on that plane. So, there's a 2% tornado risk today, so just be careful. There's already a line of thunderstorms forming to our west. We'll have to watch and see, do those storms start to rotate or take on gustier winds? We'll certainly watch that, but there is a sneaky tornado threat, particularly from as far west as maybe Sanford through the Triangle area, points north and east, and I'll even go as far to say even Fayetteville, Greenville, that could certainly be a tornado threat as well. So there's our tornado threat for today. Again, not a tornado outbreaker or anything like that, but there is certainly a good opportunity that we see a couple tornado warnings today. And going through a future cast off the pivotal weather, again, you see our thunderstorms, and what's happening is you have some type of surface boundary located somewhere up in here. I think you have a surface boundary. Whenever you get these boundaries to develop across areas, you get what you had in Virginia. So Virginia had pretty much a mini little tornado outbreak because you had that surface boundary that was draped along those areas. And whenever you have a boundary, right along those boundaries is where thunderstorms love to rotate. And sometimes, you can get multiple storms to rotate along that boundary. So again, watch out for a few tornado warnings, a few severe thunderstorm warnings today. Could certainly catch a lot of people off guard since, wasn't really talked about as much, but it could certainly be a tornado threat today. So, but that's really it, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and get off here. I'm not gonna talk in circles, but going back to what I was talking about in the beginning, again, 40% chance of cyclone formation in the Western Caribbean. Highly unlikely that we get a big system, but again, as always, I'm the Storm Warden, and I will keep you guys warned of any upcoming systems that may affect the Southeast or anywhere in the country. But I'll be back at you guys another video update tomorrow. And again, I will make a video talking about Helene and the overview of that. I just gotta you know, get my data right with that. But I'll be back at you guys another video tomorrow.